5 bottles of whiskey that I recommend. These are all bangers. These are all bottles that I popped recently. I'm thoroughly enjoying, and I've got something at every price point. So it should be a fun one. Stick around. What's up, guys? Jeff coming to you from the old set. That's right, I am back in my home studio, at least for the time being. I'm on a bit of a hiatus from bartending. Also, I am no longer associated with the 18, the bar I used to work at, so if you come to Taipei and visit the bar expecting to find me, you will not find me there. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about 5 bottles that I recently acquired. I have been on a bit of a shopping spree lately, and also I've recently had a bunch of buddies kind of converge here in Taipei, and a lot of them showed up bearing gifts, so there is plenty of new stuff to discuss. As I said, we have something at every price point, so I'll go from most expensive to cheapest. I'll give you the price, I'll give you the specs, some basic tasting notes, and again, all of these highly recommended. As usual, I do have a mystery port in my glass. This is a whiskey that I popped a couple weeks back. It absolutely blew me away, but it's a little bit too fancy, too expensive to put on a regular list. I did want to include it in this video though, just because I felt like showing off, and showing off makes me feel like a big boy. Your hint is that this is from one of my all-time favorite distilleries. It's very old. It's a 25-year-old whiskey. It's cask strength. It's from a discontinued OB collection that I've talked a lot about in the past. Traditionally, I've been a huge fan of the 18-year-old. It's since been replaced with a cask strength line, and I guess we'll just leave it at that. Good luck guessing, and let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into our review. In the meantime, if you will kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. All right, at the back of this list, as I mentioned, our theme is things that I've popped recently. This is a whiskey I've had before, actually several times, but I recently popped a new bottle, so that's good enough for me. It's a whiskey that is pretty famous. It is the Glenmorangie Signet. This is an absolutely beautiful whiskey, and I think I've discussed it multiple times already on the channel. And one of the things that I often say about this bottle is that despite being a no age stated whiskey, it is marketed and priced as a premium whiskey. However, it tastes like a premium whiskey. And one thing I can say about this bottle, I've had multiple bottles in the past, is that despite the fact that they're pretty much always absolutely delicious, not pretty much, every bottle I've had has been absolutely delicious, that's not to say that they're totally consistent. I have had some that are better than others. Again, always good though. Anyway, this stuff is 46%. The pitch with this one is that it's made using chocolate malt, which is basically malted barley that has been essentially roasted before distillation, and that'll give you notes of coffee, chocolate, and tiramisu. And yes, those flavors do show up in this. Beyond that, it's meant to have a good amount of well-aged stock in the composition. Apparently, some of the whiskey that went into this is upwards of 30 years old. And as I always say, this is still an absolutely delicious whiskey. It's expensive. I think my market is going to be cheaper than most markets, so do keep that in mind. Here in Taiwan, this costs $175 US. I know it's upwards of 300 in some markets. I might think twice there, but for my price here in Taiwan, absolutely reasonable. Again, looks premium, tastes premium. I would describe this whiskey as lush, indulgent tiramisu, great texture, great mouthfeel. It's elevated by the unique production method, the well-aged stock that went into it, as well as I think some very masterful cask play. So yeah, still beautiful whiskey, still recommended. Next up, we have Kilchoman. This is part of the 20th anniversary series that came out, I think, last year. This is a 14-year-old sherry cask matured 100% Isla release. This is one I was really excited to try. This was a gift from my buddy Robert. Robert, thank you very much. And it is very good. Our ABV is 55%. As I said, this is part of the 100% Isla series, which is a great series. I'm glad to see them expanding outwards from their annual batch releases. The difference between these and regular Kilchomans is these are slightly less peated. I think normal Kilchoman's around 50. This one should be 20, maybe 25. I think it's 20 ppm, so not quite as heavily peated. Our maturation for this one is a full Oloroso cask maturation. Yeah, really interesting stuff. And considering we have that nice age statement, a slightly more gentle peat influence, a full sherry cask maturation, I think this one really came together beautifully. It's got a lot of like grilled, charred, meaty barbecue notes, which I'm always a sucker for. The casks here are forward but well integrated. They work really well with the house style, which is on full display. It's got that ashy Kilchoman character that I really love. Absolutely delicious. I describe this as peat, sherry, and charred meats. Here in my market, it sells for about 150 US, which is expensive, but it's age stated, 55% ABV, fully craft, farm to bottle, and as I said, delicious. So this one is highly recommended. Next up, we have an Oban. This one is the 15-year-old cask strength Port Cask. This one's a US exclusive, and it's a follow-up to last year's release, which I believe was also 15 years old cask strength, and it was an Oloroso and Palo Cortado finish, I think. And while last year's was not a favorite of mine, I am happy to report that this one is better. I do think it's a step up from last year's. Our ABV is 52.1%, and the port casks do work pretty well here. I would describe this as winey, raisiny, and coastal. Now, typically, I'm not the biggest port fan. It works sometimes, but not always. I do think it works here. That being said, it's not my favorite Oban because I prefer when I'm drinking Oban to taste more distillate. I like the cask influence to be pretty dialed back. The port is pretty forward here, but as I said, it does work. I believe the price on this one to be around 130 US dollars. This was actually a gift, so I didn't pay anything for it, but it was a gift from my buddy Michael. Michael, thank you very much. And I know that he got this on sale for roughly 70 US, which I'm pretty sure was a pricing mistake. So I do not expect anyone to be able to find it at that price anywhere in the US, but he managed to, so good on him. For $70, absolutely. For $130, Then again, maybe you really liked last year's, in which case $130 might be worth it. I think I'm one of the only people on the internet who didn't really enjoy last year's 15-year-old release. So if you did, $130 might be reasonable. For me, as I said, it's not my favorite way to present Oban, so that does seem a little bit high, but it is, after all, a 15-year-old cask strength release. Or I don't know about cask strength, but at least it's got a higher ABV, and it is delicious. So it is one for you to consider, and it's good. All right, at number 2, we have Arran Barley. This is another gift. This one was from my buddy Andy, aka the Whiskey King of Guam. He brought a bunch of these over, which was really nice of him, and I have to say, this is good stuff. This was made using optic barley, fully craft, of course, 18,000 bottles made. Our ABV is, 50% here. This was a gift, but I looked it up, and here in my market, this sells for roughly 80 US dollars, and I think it's worth it. Now, I'm famously not very clever and therefore extremely susceptible to marketing, but I swear I get a lot of barley flavor in this. It tastes very barley forward. It's also quite substantial. We have a wonderful mouthfeel here, unique flavor profile. For me, this leans quite farmy, almost to the point that it's got a bit of a Campbelltown vibe. So yeah, I would describe this stuff as farmy, natural barley, which sounds funny, but it'll definitely make sense if you try this stuff. So yeah, banger of a whiskey. Thanks again to Andy. This one is highly recommended. Next up, we have a non-single malt. So this one was brought over by my buddy Tim, who has effectively converted me into a bourbon lover over the years. And I do now love a good bourbon, and I love a good Stagg. So Tim brought this one over. This one is batch 24B. And what's funny is I'm just now realizing this. Pretty much every whiskey we've talked about on today's list was gifted to me by my friends. So I didn't really buy anything on today's list. Didn't plan it out this way, but what can I say? People love me. I'm delightful. Anyway, like many other Staggs, this one is intense. It is deep. It is powerful. That's what this gives us huge caramels, vanillas, oaks, classic bourbon flavor. And usually when I describe Staggs, I'll use the bass versus treble analogy, where Staggs always offer up a whole lot of base flavors, which I think is what helps make it stand out. Our ABV here is 63.45%, so it's pretty substantial. Batch-wise, so I'm not a batch guy. I've had a few batches of this, I think 4 now, and there are subtle differences. I would probably say this one is maybe slightly less fruity and more vanilla forward than some of the other batches, but I'm not one to like sit down and go through all the subtle differences. For me, most Staggs, they are of a certain quality and they scratch the same itch. And this one, yeah, I mean, it's a Stagg through and through, and that's a good thing. The standard of quality for Staggs in general is quite high, considering that these typically sell for like 60 to 70 US dollars. Back in the day, these were tough to find, but apparently that is changing, and these are becoming more and more common. I'm sure they're not everywhere, but it's not hard to find like it used to be, and I don't think people are paying absurd secondary prices like they used to for this stuff, which is good news, of course. Honestly, for that price, I don't think there's a better bourbon on the market. I'm not a bourbon guy though, so I wouldn't really know, but yeah, these bottles are always just loads of fun. Classic bourbon profiles dialed way up. I would describe it as, what was my 3-word descriptor here? Intense, rich bass notes. So yeah, definitely worth picking up. All right, that was the list, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, this is the part of the video where I want to hear from you. Our concept is pretty straightforward. What are some recent bottles that you popped that you really enjoy? And finally, if you stuck around to find out what the mystery pour in the glass is here, I mentioned that this is absolutely incredible stuff. It's from a discontinued collection that I love. I often tout the 18. This one is 25 years old and cask strength. Another gift from my buddy Andy. Andy, thank you very much. What I'm drinking is Longmorn 25-year-old. This one is a cask strength release. It's from the Secret Speyside collection, which is a collection that sadly has been discontinued because every single whiskey in the Longmorn lineup, the Secret Speyside Longmorn lineup, was fantastic. They had an 18-year-old and a 23-year-old. Both of those are, I believe, 48%, and then our 25-year-old cask strength. Obviously, being 25 years old and cask strength, it's not super cheap whiskey by any measure, but it's also not as overpriced and expensive as the new cask strength lineup that we got from Longmorn. So this stuff is gorgeous. It is complex, it is rich, and it is interesting. And as I said, Longmorn is one of my favorite distilleries, and I felt like showing off today. Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of today's video, guys. Thank you very much for watching as always. Looking forward to reading the comments below. If you want to help support the channel, I will put Patreon and PayPal down below. Whole channel's me, scripting, shooting, editing, so any little contribution helps. I think patrons are going to be on this side today. I don't know, I'm still figuring out the new set. Either way, again, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.